Good evening. I'm calling to order the organizational meeting of the Euclid Board of Education. Today is January 14th, 2013. And if you'll please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lysy.
Here.
Mr. Smith. Here. Mrs. Sudar.
Here.
Mrs. Van Hoek.
Here.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Here.
All members are present.
Okay, this is our organizational meeting, which means we have a lot of very routine business to do because it's kind of like setting up for the year. At this point, I'll ask for a motion to appoint a chairman for the meeting, for the first part of the meeting.
Ms. Van Hoek, I would recommend that you be appointed the chairperson for tonight's meeting.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Smith and seconded by Mrs. Lysy. We call the roll.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoek.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, at this point, we'll take a motion for the nomination for, do the nomination for president of the school board.
I'd like to nominate Kay Van Hoek as president of the Euclid Board of Education.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Okay, then we'll close nominations and call for a roll.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoek.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And then election of the vice president. Is there a nomination?
Madam Chairwoman, I would nominate Donna Sudar to serve as the vice president of the Euclid School Board.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? I declare the nominations closed. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Van Hoek.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Number 9 is the resolution to set our board meeting dates. Is there anyone who would like to make that motion, please?
I'd like to make the motion that we accept the dates as proposed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Sudar, seconded by Mrs. Lysy. Any other comments or questions? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoek.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Do we have a motion to adopt the minutes for December 10th and 17th?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lysy, second.
Second.
By Mrs. Sudar. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoek.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. At this time, are there any visitor comments relative to the written agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on then to some appointments by the board. Considering the appointment of the legislative liaison, is there a nomination?
I'd like to appoint or have the consideration to appoint Mr. Ken Smith for the legislative liaison.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Sudar. Any questions or comments? You do a great job, Mr. Smith, so keep it up.
Very good.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoek.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, at this time, consider the appointment of Student Achievement Liaison.
I would like to appoint Kathy DeAngelis as the new Student Achievement Liaison.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we're looking forward to some great reports, Kathy. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Ho.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Number 14 is to consider the appointment to the Urban Commission.
I'd like to recommend that Kay Van Ho be appointed to the Urban Commission, representing us at OSBA.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Lacey, I guess, gets that one.
Can we have some discussion? Do
Sure.
you want to do this?
Yeah, no, it'll be fine.
Okay.
I just hope that they give me a little more notice than what they gave you. Okay, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Van Ho.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, and number 15 is to consider appointment of a member to the Tax Incentive Review Committee, and I'd like to put Donna Sudar's name in for that. Is there a second?
Second?
A second by Mr. Smith. And call the roll, please.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Ho.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Can I just have one, could you please notify me of those meetings? Because I was not notified in the past. So if you'd like me to attend, I need to know.
Okay.
I'll be happy to attend.
I made the assumption you got a notice from the city, but I will.
I did not.
Okay. At this time, there's a presentation. I'm guessing I will turn this over to Mr. Bell.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, I think I'm going to do this over here. Just bear with me.
Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the board, it is School Boards Recognition Month, and we're very, very proud of all of you. And tonight, what we want to do is to recognize you. So I just want to read a couple of things. We have a resolution, but I want to just share with you some thoughts about your role as school board members. One of the things that I think is important for people to realize with school board members is that school board members are citizens, and you really impact the decisions that take place in the district. What happens with school boards, as you know, is that you determine the what for us, and then we determine the how, but we work together as a team, and we're really appreciative of all of your guidance, your leadership, and your efforts in that area. You established the framework and the policies in our school district to help us to move forward, and it's indicative of the growth and all of the importance of the work that you do, because it impacts the children in our district, so we appreciate that. There are 718 school boards in the state of Ohio, and what you allow us to do by your leadership is to have local control. If we did not have school board leadership, then we would have control from other sources, and we would not be able to do the things that we need to do within our particular community. So we appreciate your work in that area. It's a tradition that began about 300 years ago, and that it's a responsibility, your responsibility is not taken lightly, and we want you to know that we appreciate all of you. So at this time, what I want to do is say thank you, not only on behalf of my administrative team, but on behalf of all of the stakeholders of the city of Euclid, because I know in times can be a thankless job. A lot of time and effort go into what you do. A lot of time and effort into the discussion and all of the meetings and all of the many things that you do. But I want you to know on our behalf that we really appreciate what you've done, and I really appreciated your leadership throughout the campaign and leadership in this district. So at this time, I'd like everyone to just, before I recognize the school board members, is just to give them collectively as a group a round of applause for all of the work that they do. And so, at this time, what I'd like to do is to have each school board member, I'll call your name, you come up, and then I can shake your hand and we can recognize you publicly. And I want to start with Kay Van Ho, our president, this is her 26th year as a school board member. We can give her a round of applause. You guys stay up there so we can see you as a team. I'll just put you right up there.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Just like we do with the kids.
That's right. Donna Sudar, who is vice president, this is her 8th year. Mr. Kent Smith, this is his 12th year as a school board member. This is Angie Lizy, and this is her 12th year as a school board member.
Oh,
I'm sorry. And this is Kathy DeAngelis. This is her 2nd year as a school board member. And while you're there, I'm just going to, just briefly, I want to read this proclamation and resolution where it says, whereas it shall be the mission of the Euclid School District to provide all students with the best possible education, and whereas the school board sets a direction for our community public schools by envisioning the community's education future, and whereas the school board sets policy and procedures to govern all aspects of the district's operations, and whereas the school board keeps attention focused on progress toward the school district's goals and maintains two-way communication with all segments of the community, and whereas serving on the school board requires an unselfish devotion of time and service to carry on the mission and business of the school district, and whereas the school board must respond on behalf of the community to the educational needs of students, and whereas the school board voluntarily accepts the above-mentioned responsibilities, now therefore be it resolved that I do thereby proclaim January 2013 as School Board Recognition Month in Euclid City Schools, and I encourage all citizens to publicly and privately thank the school board members for the dedicated service that they give to our children. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's very nice. And I always wondered why I picked January when possibly some people haven't done anything yet, but we'll take it whenever. Okay. At this point, we'll move on to reports and recommendations of the treasurer, Mr. Bassett.
Thank you. Item 16 is a resolution to appoint the treasurer as the board's designee for public records trading. I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mrs. DeAngelis. Any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lizy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Item 17 is a resolution to approve financial data as submitted, and I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mr. Smith. Are there any questions or comments? And we will pay our bills then.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lizy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, the next several are annual organizational meeting business items, and number 18 is a resolution giving authority to the treasurer to sign checks and warrants, and I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second?
By Mrs. Lysy. Are there any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lizy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Item 19 is a resolution authorizing the treasurer to invest district funds. I recommend approval.
So, is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second. By Mrs. DeAngelis. Would you like to explain what you're allowed to invest in?
Yes, school districts are very limited as prescribed by Ohio law in what we can invest in. We can invest in securities of U.S. government, such as treasury bills, agency notes, those types of things. We can invest monies as in a depository way with banks such as CDs, money market savings, if the bank has it collateralized, whether it's by a combination of federal insurance or securities, out of their pool securities. It must be collateralized. We can invest in the Star Ohio program that's run by the State Treasurer's Office. And for the most part, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Just wanted to give people peace of mind that we're not investing in the stock market or futures. Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Van Ho.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Item 20 is a resolution to adopt the tax budget for the 2013-14 year, and I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second by Mrs. DeAngelis. Did you want to comment on it?
Yes, please. As the board knows, a budget or tax budget is required to be adopted by boards of education by January 20th for every ensuing fiscal year. So this will be for the 13-14 fiscal year. When the board does adopt it, it must have a budget hearing, and this shall act as the budget hearing. As the board knows, but for the benefit of our audience, this really has little to do with the operating budget of the district. This essentially just is the board's formal declaration for the need of the tax monies that are available to the district. So within this budget, we are asking for all the tax monies, property tax monies available to us for the general fund, debt service fund, and permanent improvement fund. The number we have in here totals $49.1 million. Within this budget, we also report estimates of all of our funds, revenues, expenditures, so a certificate of estimated resources, an initial one, can be developed for the budgeting process. And this document reflects total revenues for all funds of $113.8 million, expenditures of $100.4 million. Last but not least is some information on our debt requirements. This document is, in my opinion, the most useful part of this document is the debt service information, where we set or report the debt service requirements for the fiscal year, so the county knows what millage to assess for the debt millage. And we are showing for the 13-14 fiscal year principal and interest payments totaling $3.1 million. Also on this document is a schedule listing all of our levies that have been passed by the voters over the years, to include the recent one approved this last November. And I'd be happy to answer questions.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board?
Just one. Mr. Vasic, when I was looking through the statement of fund activity, and I think you might have answered it, but I can't remember. For Rotary Internal Services, and it's account number 014, what does that mean, Rotary?
That typically refers to money that comes in and out right away. We process a lot of our insurance payments through there. We may collect for, on a very small scale, collect for field trips. Basically money that we don't hold. It's basically a collection spot for money that's going out right away.
That might be able to help Madam Chair and members of the board. Ms. Lysy, what happens a lot of times is that's the account that's used for student activity accounts when they have the different things that they do, because usually what happens with that is that, as Mr. Bassett explains, they go, the money is there, but then it goes out very quickly, and then there's a quick turnaround, and there's a lot of activity, a lot of miscellaneous type activities. So we use that kind of an account so that you can have the money be liquid a little bit quicker than you would if it was in a different kind of an account.
Okay. And then maybe just on the same page, 463 alternative, maybe we should add a C for school. The C's missing. And then on the last page, I'm guessing that's not pod service, but food service for 006 on proprietary?
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We don't service fives.
Yeah, it's what I,
We'll make those corrections and make sure that that doesn't, we shouldn't have any mistakes.
okay.
Okay, it is a requirement of law that we open up for a public meeting, which means if any one of you has any questions about our budget, you can ask them at this time. Seeing none, then we will go on to call the roll, please.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Item 21 is a resolution to approve entering once again into the OSBA's Legal Assistance Fund, and I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved?
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mrs. DeAngelis this time. We have taken advantage of this, so the cost of $250 a year is not bad at all. This is when the association for all the school boards feels that we would have something, legal litigation that would be of interest to more districts than just our own. So that's when they will look at helping you to fund whatever it is you're looking to defend or accuse, I guess, but either way. Okay, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Did we use this during the Department of Justice?
No,
No?
we used it when they were talking about intangible tax, jibs and dies.
Jigs and dies.
Jigs and
Yes.
And they were
Yes.
trying to determine whether those were taxable or not. So we used it then. It has to be more than just one district,
Okay.
so. Okay,
Item 22 is a resolution accepting donations. We have two listed. First, from the Mentor United Methodist Church, $150 to be used for the high school mediation fund. And secondly, a donation of $30,000 from an anonymous source to be used as the district sees fit. And I recommend approval.
thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved?
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
Mrs. DeAngelis. And you'll make sure that they are properly thanked.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just a
Yeah.
question. I know that the $30,000 is an anonymous donation, but was there any sort of stipulation as to how that money or those funds would be used
No.
for, or was?
No, and we have received this in the past. In fact, they made the comment, the comment was made that you folks know better than we do how you need the money. So it's very, very generous and very gracious
generous,
of
and
them.
it's substantial,
Yes.
and very much needed, so thank you.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. And item 23 is a resolution accepting the lowest responsive and responsible bid for the demolition of the Russell Irvine building. This awards a contract to All Aspects Contracting with the winning bid of $114,000, and I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved?
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mr. Smith. Okay. I believe the $114,000 was actually under what we were estimating. And do you know when
They have been in for,
Thank you, Mr. Higley. Thank you.
They have been in for the last 2 weeks, gutting the insides, taking the copper and some of the pieces that are worth anything. And they should start tearing down. They were scheduled to start today. I have not been over there, so I don't know if they've actually started the demolition yet, but it's starting this week.
So very soon.
Yep.
Was the asbestos abated already in there?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Okay. I'm sure people will like to see green grass. And once it's torn down, then that property goes to the city?
That's correct.
Okay. Do we have to vote on anything to transfer that, or has that already been?
I believe that's already been done.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0, and that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to reports and recommendations of the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'd like to turn item numbers 24, 25, and 26 over to Dr. Andrea Selico, who will go through our personnel change. Dr. Selico.
Thank you. Item 24 is a resolution considering the certified staff for the 2012-2013 school year, and I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second
Second?
by Mr. Smith. Are there any questions or comments?
I have a question. The substitute administrator
Yes.
is an as-needed basis. Do we think that that individual will be needed at the moment? Are we anticipating?
He is, Mr. Steinmetz is at Arbor currently, and we're not sure the length of time that he will be there. So, and we have some future absences that we're expecting with maternity leaves. So we want to have him on our roster so we can use him as needed.
Okay.
Just to update the board, we've, as you know, we have an administrator who is going through an illness, and at this point, we don't know the current status, and so until we do, we want to make sure that we're able to have appropriate administrative coverage. The assistant principal there is doing a great job, but does need some support. And so, as Dr. Selico outlined, we also can use that person in other areas too. So that's the reason for the kind of as needed, as opposed to having it permanent, because we really don't know how long this will be.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Just, on a lighter note, I noticed that we are approving the appointments of our wrestling staff at the high school, Central and Forest Park. And just a congratulatory thank you to Mike Turk, who's the head wrestling coach at the high school. He is rebuilding the wrestling program here in Euclid, and the Central Middle School and Forest Park Middle School wrestling numbers are at the highest they've been in years. And so just kudos to Mr. Turk for really grabbing kids out of the hallway, asking them how much they weigh, and if they'd like to wrestle. So he does a really great job, and he gets very little recognition for us. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize his efforts.
And I think the one thing, and we appreciate that, and Madam Chair, members of the board, one thing I think they need to do is we really want to try to get some more home wrestling meets. We've got one, I think.
Well, and actually, he's hosting a youth wrestling tournament here at the high school on January 19th, January 20th. So if there's anyone interested in a youth wrestler ages 5 to 13 who would like to participate in this tournament, show up at Euclid High School at 8 a.m. for weigh-ins, and please participate.
Thank you.
And we've been doing pretty good at our wrestling meet, so
We have been.
it's been really nice. I get updates from him. Okay, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 25 is a resolution considering classified staff for the 2012-2013 school year, and I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second
Second.
by Mrs. De Angelis. Are there any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, just so you know, ABLE is our adult basic literacy education program, and sometimes we use those synonyms and abbreviations and people don't know. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of what that represents, and so we're asking for approval of, we are the fiscal agent that runs through, and so we're asking for that approval.
Okay, I think you're one ahead of
Yeah,
us.
that's the next one.
But that's okay, so you've already explained it for next one.
There you go.
I was like,
Okay, we're still on 25. Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 26 is a resolution considering the adult basic literacy education staff for the 2012-2013 school year, and I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar. Second?
Second.
By Mrs. De Angelis. Are there any questions or comments? I'm real big on making sure that they say what those letters stand for, so
Sure.
they know that.
I was just too ready for it.
You were? You were? Okay. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And item 27 is a resolution considering grant payments, and I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved?
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
And Mrs. Lysy. Are there any questions or comments?
What kind of work duties would do these women perform that would?
You know, it's interesting. I asked that today because Mr. Schweitzer is in charge of this program, so I don't have a whole lot of working knowledge of it, but I saw the resolution coming up, so I asked Sue Maroney, who also does a lot for this program. And it's an extra program for tutoring through Tri-C, so it's a little bit in addition to the normal responsibilities, so there's a stipend that gets paid 3 times a year.
So do they tutor the students that participate in the Tri-C programs at Shore, or?
You know what, she wasn't quite sure of all that information, so
Yeah, I can help
don't
you
know.
with that. Madam Chair, members of the board, one of the individuals there is the supervisor. So she is actually over the program, and so she's doing some additional, she is actually supporting the tutors to make sure that things are getting done. The other individual is one of the, an additional advisor, and that's the difference in the salary. And so that is an actual tutor, and one is the actual supervisor.
Okay.
And so you have one person who is ensuring that those students are getting what they need, and then you have the other person who is actually delivering the service.
I think your question was this the Tri-C program?
Well, we do have Tri-C classes at Shore, so I wondered if they were actually
that, or is
tutoring
it at the high
those
school?
students that
These are at the-
participate in the Tri-C classes at Shore Cultural Center.
These, I believe, are the ones at Shore.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item number 28 is a consideration for a grant application, and this is the Ohio Department of Education grant for First Bridge program, and this is a grant that's been submitted in a partnership with the Brooklyn School District and the South Euclid Lyndhurst School District. And as you know, our early literacy collaborative and what we're trying to do with early child care is very important, and this is an opportunity for us to use money to support that area. So we're asking for approving of this to be able to support that in joint partnership with the other 2 school districts. And Mr. Lysick has been a part of this and instrumental in getting this to happen. I don't know if there's anything I'm missing, Mr. Lysick, that you want to add, but that's really what we're trying to do. And as you know, we're really trying to make sure that we've got the right foundation for our kids in the pre-K and preschool, so that when they get to our school district that they're able to perform. And this grant will help us to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. Is this a competitive grant?
I believe it is.
And when would we find
There
out?
are 2 different kinds of grants. Some are competitive and some you just can apply for and get, so that means that we don't know if we'll get this or not. But hopefully we will, because we sure need it. Are there any questions?
Motion.
When will we
Motion,
find out
sorry.
about this
I
grant?
thought we did a motion, I'm sorry.
Actually,
Mid-April.
mid-April.
Mid-April, we'll find out.
We need a motion for this, I'm sorry, I thought we had it.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lysy.
Second.
Second by Sudar, okay. Now, are there any other questions or comments?
Will we be sharing services with Brooklyn City Schools and South Euclid Lyndhurst?
Yes, we will be sharing services and facilities for trainings,
Right.
for the personnel that would be conducting those trainings and where they would be taking place, and then also be sharing resources from the public libraries in each of the areas to address those early literacy pieces.
I think the other thing, Madam Chair, members of the board, that is really good about this grant is that not only do we share those resources, but we also expertise.
Yeah.
So if there's an area where we don't have the knowledge to be able to do something, or we need the professional development in an area, we're able to do that by pooling our resources and being able to, bring that together. So I think that's another advantage to this competitive grant. So I appreciate the forward thinking of Mr. Lysick and his team.
Well, and Mr. Lysick, he does seem to have a very good working relationship with the instructional director over at South Euclid Lyndhurst, and you've done other collaboratives like this that have worked out very well, so thank you for that.
Are there any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And item number 29 is the third reading of our recommendation on the three policy adjustments, one being 1520, the employment of administrators. And as we talked about before, there's been a change in the actual cycle. Really doesn't impact us as much this year as you might think, but this is the third reading there, and then the bullying and other forms of aggressive behavior, and then student abuse and neglect, and we need to adopt that since this is the third reading tonight.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second. Second. Second by Mrs. De Angelis. Are there any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And
Do you have informal for
I
us?
do. Just a couple of things. One, just for the audience and the public to know that this next Monday is Dr. Martin Luther King Day. We will not be in school that day, but we do have a Martin Luther King musical that will occur at the high school on Thursday evening. I believe it's 7 p.m. And so we'd like to invite the public to be a part of that and to participate. And I think the only other informal item I have is I know that the weather is going to be turning cold, and just want parents to be aware of our policy as far as recess, so that you can have students dress accordingly, that if it's 20 degrees, the wind chill, or 20-degree temperature with wind chill, that we will not then have students out. And so I want to make sure that parents have students coming to school dressed appropriately so that they can go to recess unless it reaches that level. And just wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page and was aware of that information, especially in January and February as the weather turns a little bit cooler.
Okay. Very true.
And Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Okay. Do we have any communications or petitions?
We do not.
Any new or old business?
We do not.
Okay, at this time we'll open for board members informal. If anybody has anything. Mr. Smith?
Madam President. Yes, I have prepared a legislative liaison report for the community and just wanted to use the board members' informal section of the meeting to present it to the community. I'm going to read from a Columbus Dispatch article that was in yesterday's edition of the Columbus Daily Paper, and also reference two documents put out by the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland, which is really an excellent source of economic policy opinion and data. But so just so the community is aware, the 130th General Assembly was sworn in last week, which is to say we have a new slate of legislators that are going to be in Columbus creating policy with the governor over the next 2 years. The headline of this Columbus Dispatch article is Kasich's turn for school reform. And the first paragraph says, Governor Kasich will soon become the fourth straight Ohio governor to propose sweeping changes for financing public schools and improving student performance. And I'm going to highlight a few different things from the article, because this is going to be very critical. This debate will probably unfold over the next 6 months. Third paragraph, the administration won't discuss specifics, but Kasich has hinted what his plan might look like, and several themes have emerged, including allowing funding to follow students if they wind up at a non-traditional school. That's number one. Number two, pushing more money into the classroom and away from bureaucracy. Number three, providing additional funds for students considered more expensive to educate, such as those with special needs or from poor families. That third point, quite frankly, is the reason for optimism of these 5 points. But I would, before we begin to celebrate, there are other things that are in this article. Number 4, focusing on student outcomes and less on prescribing resources or requirements such as class size. That's a problem. Number 5, rewarding schools and teachers when students succeed. A Kasich spokesperson said, and I'm now quoting him as he is quoted in the article, for a very long time, Ohio has not been very good about getting money into instruction instead of funding overhead. We want to get away from this mindset set of inputs and pay more attention to outcomes. The focus needs to be on the boys and girls. Well, that all depends on how you define overhead and instruction. Again, the hopeful part of those 5 premises that Mr. Kasich supposedly, as quoted in the article, hinted at, were proposing additional funds for students considered more expensive to educate. Later on in the article, and this is a reason for perhaps not so much optimism, the new Senate president is a gentleman named Keith Faber, who's a Republican from Salina. And he said, I'm not sure the amount is important as how it is spent. In addition to a funding allocation problem, we probably have a school spending problem. Faber questions why school costs rise faster than inflation. He says the way money is spent in Ohio is, quote, more a result of politics than good public policy, unquote, noting some districts spend twice as much as others but get far lower results. That runs completely counter to the third point that the Kasich administration suggested, which is, again, students that are considered far more expensive to educate, such as those with special needs and from poor families. The thing that drives our budget above the rate of inflation more than anything else is the insurance that we pay for our personnel and special education costs. Those are primarily the 2 major drivers. And so when Mr. Faber suggests that we have a school spending problem, he's not qualified to even speak on the topic, quite frankly. He's not doing his homework as the president of the Senate should before entering into a debate on how public schools should be funded. Nikki Antonio, who is a representative from nearby Lakewood, a community similar to Euclid in some of the challenges we will be facing with our public education, is quoted, and she is the ranking minority member of the House Education Committee. She said she is looking for, quote, a fair funding formula, and one that, quote, allows schools to provide a quality education for every student. She goes on to say, are we providing all the resources possible to give our kids the best chance for competing in a global economy? That should be on all of our minds. And I think Representative Antonio is stating exactly what is the proper way to think about the funding of education. That it's not necessarily, we are not competing against what the rate of inflation is. We are trying to prepare our kids to compete in the global marketplace. Now let me quote from some of the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland studies. First paragraph from an economist named Jonathan James. Title of this article, this paper is The College Wage Premium. His first paragraph, it is well documented that college graduates earn significantly higher wages on average than those with only a high school diploma. The college wage premium has been a central focus for researchers because it is both large and growing. Current data indicate that college degree holders enjoy an 84% increase in earnings over their high school educated counterparts. Now moving to something that I think is just, I would like to pass it out to every state legislature, member of the newly minted 130th General Assembly. It's from May 15th, 2012, again from the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. The title of this is 10 Things to Know About the Shape of Ohio's Skilled Workforce. Again, the first paragraph, and then I'm going to not get into all 10 of these, but I am going to get into the first one. The first paragraph says, a region's economic performance is closely related to the quality of its human capital, which it defines as the knowledge and skills that its workforce possesses. Many studies have shown that U.S. states and metropolitan areas with a higher proportion of highly skilled workers grow faster in terms of income, productivity, and population than less skilled regions. And again, the first point in the 10 things to know about the shape of Ohio's skilled workforce. Number 1, Ohio's ranking in college attainment rates among the 50 states has been static for the last 3 decades, hovering around the 25th percentile. In 2010, for example, 24.6% of Ohioans aged 25 and older had earned a 4-year degree compared to the national average of 28.2, placing Ohio at 39th in the rankings as compared to the 50 states. But it is not, like other states, Ohio has seen an increase in college attainment rates over time, but it has not improved its relative position among the states. States such as, and this is again, when we think about our neighbors, we need to think about our Midwestern neighbors. The very next sentence in this study, states such as Pennsylvania and Illinois have seen marked increases in their college attainment rates, both in absolute and relative terms, each improving by 15 places since 1980, which is to say we are falling behind our Midwestern competitors in terms of our workforce's ability to operate in a global and modern economy. So as Governor Kasich and the state legislature begin to investigate a school funding formula, I would suggest that they would be wise, if they have eyes on the future of Ohio, to not evaluate school funding on a measure of purely what is the inflation index, but rather I would suggest they need to take a larger view. And the 2 attitude changes I think Columbus should take is, number 1, see education as not a K-12 mission, but a pre-K to 16 mission. What this Federal Reserve study is saying is that we need to increase the amount of college graduates. Now, on the K-12 level, that means we need to prepare our students to be able to take that next step. But in the modern economy that Ohio so desperately needs and is falling behind as compared to our Midwestern competitors, we are not competing as well as our Midwestern neighbors because we don't have the college graduation rate. And the other thing is, and this really I think would summarize my comments, is that education spending should not be seen as an expenditure, but it should be seen as an investment in the future economic infrastructure of this community and this region and this state. And I would encourage Columbus to take heed, not necessarily of my words, but of the words of the Cleveland Federal Reserve Bank and their studies such as the 10 things to know about the shape of Ohio's skilled workforce. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there any other board members informal?
Can I just add one
Sure.
thing? And I really appreciate the information because I think it has a lot of credence to our students as we try to get them ready for the next step. The one thing that I found interesting is that we currently work under a weighted system, through our funding, which gives weight to special education, gives weights to different aspects of service that we provide. So I'm really curious as to what's the difference when they say, you talk about increasing the spending for special education. We increase that with weights, and we do all of that through the funding. All we've really got to do is look at that formula that we have and tweak it. I think sometimes we look at trying to invent something new. When we have it there, we just have to tweak what we really have. So I'm just trying to look at the difference because, when you look at our current form, we have a formula. It's a weighted formula, and it gives weights to special education, gives weights to kids who we have to educate that cost us more, and there's a weight assigned to it. So I guess I'm just curious as to what it looks like if it's different, if we're going to do it. It would seem to me the easiest way would be to assign more weight to it, but, I don't know.
Well, we will keep the community apprised as to how the funding formula unfolds in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, very interesting.
And again, one of the reasons why I wanted to, and again, this third paragraph that has the 5 things, the Kasich administration is very strategic in that they did not issue, this is what they want the plan to have. And the article even says the administration won't discuss specifics, but Kasich has hinted about what his plan might look like. And again, the third one is the one to give us a little bit of optimism. Some of the other points are not as much, but I mean, my hope in kind of reading this into the record, for lack of a better term, is that, perhaps we can hold Columbus's words against them as this, policy unfolds. But again, those are not direct quotes, those are not a promise, but he has hinted that providing additional funds for students considered more expensive to educate, such as those with special needs or from poor families, is going to be a consideration as this unfolds.
And for scale, for the public to know, for scale, if you're looking at the scale for the Euclid City Schools, it's roughly, and Kim, you correct me if I'm wrong, roughly 21% of our population is special education. So when you look at that, we're talking roughly 21% of our population that would then be in that category that would need that additional funding. So,
Plus, when you add poverty, it adds that many more.
yes.
What I find interesting about the whole proposal that Governor Kasich is putting forward is it still has nothing to do with what the public wants, which is to get school boards or school districts off of the ballot all the time. They're still not addressing that issue. And that's the most critical issue and what people have been begging for, and I don't see that his way of changing is going to affect that at all.
It'd be interesting to see how Illinois funds their public school systems. In Pennsylvania, there's a separate school tax that's completely separate from your property tax. And being a native of Pennsylvania and having to pay estate taxes and taking care of my family's property all these years, and you don't get a vote. That school tax increases every year, and people in Pennsylvania they pay it because they understand the value in educating their future.
There are states that do it where the board would submit their budget to some people at the state level who review it and decide if it's enough or not, and then just assess the tax on the districts, which, Ohio has never tried, so we'll have to see how this one comes out. But there are a lot of states that don't get to vote on their taxes. On school taxes, anyhow. Okay. So are there any other board members want to make a formal? I just appreciate Mr. Smith's report on that because it's something that we're going to have to watch. But the one thing I've learned in 25 years is don't get excited about any promises or talk from the state that money's going to come or more money or less money or whatever, because we won't know until after, well, probably about the end of June. And what the public needs to know is we have to make all of our decisions on who we have here next year by the end of April. So we have to make the decisions prior to finding out what Columbus is going to do, which always gives us lots of surprises. Once again, encourage people to go to the Martin Luther King celebration at the high school. It looks like it'll be very interesting. And attend our sporting events. The city is very nice to put out different events that we have, and they're listed on the bulletin board by the gazebo. And so, and if you have questions, just feel free to call, and we'll tell you when they are, because you're going to see some outstanding athletes and a lot of fun. Okay, at this time, are there any visitor comments? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, seconded by Mrs. DeAngelis. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
We'll do a chance to